Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final episode of Disruption Talks this year. And we are meeting here on this Christmas week to talk about real estate market and specifically the technology side of it. I think it's a great opportunity and timing for this year to go to an end, so we could do some kind of recaps, highlights of 2020. But what we can do as well, we could try to look at the crystal ball and see what can future hold. And for that purpose, I invited a special guest, Adi Pavlović, who's going to be connecting with us from his hometown in Texas. Houston,
Hey,
Houston,
Kamil.
Houston, do you hear me?
Thanks for having me, Kamil. Love the hat, by the way. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays as well. Do you have already some task for the Christmas task force assigned at your hometown?
No, I took care of Christmas early this year, so there's actually a bit of a panic with like shipping being delayed. And for the first time in the history of me, I've actually got all the presents already, so feels good.
Awesome. But we're here to talk some business. The year is not over, so let me take off this hat and how about me trying to introduce what Keller Williams company is and eventually introduce yourself as well. And yeah, we start from that.
Yeah, absolutely. You want me to do the intro?
Actually, let me try that,
Yeah,
and
go for
let me see if that works. So, for those who don't know, Keller Williams is the world's largest real estate franchise by the agents count, and it's headquartered with Austin in Texas, with close to 160,000 agents on board. Keller Williams has been known having this extreme focus on being agent-centered during the entire career, and been awarded numerous times for being Employer of the Year, getting awards for training organization, one of the best training organization in Northern America. And around 5 or 6 years ago, this is exactly when probably you've been joining the company.
Yep.
KW has been moving into this technology company transformation, right? And I suppose when you joined, you being part of, first of all, identifying, ideating, then designing, and last but not least, and this is what I know you, and what I remember very clearly, is that you've been always this human face of this technology and product that you've been building. You've been this person helping with the actual adoption, right? If it's events, face-to-face meetings with the agents, or video advocating, the lapse reporting. I remember you, this person. So I guess you've been involved from ideating, design, to the actual adoption. So I think it's a great opportunity, and I appreciate having you here. So how about we start, maybe you telling us how you ended up there and how was this ride for you? Because it's been 6 years for you in Keller Williams?
Yeah, 6 years. And thank you for that intro. I will say there's a lot more faces. I just happened to be one of them because I was there early and there wasn't a lot of them. So there's a lot more faces now, and they're all wonderful people. I actually, I had no background in real estate. Out of college, I did a small startup, just fell into the tech space. Got into consulting after the startup kind of burned out, learned a lot of lessons there, as most startups do. And then, Keller Williams actually reached out to me. I had done a consulting project for a telecom regarding smart homes. And I imagine that's how they found me, because I did nothing on, real estate prior to that research. And they reached out to me and they said, hey, we need help understanding the real estate tech space at a deeper level. I told him, I was like, you have the wrong guy. I don't know anything about real estate. I know about tech. And so their response was perfect. And I thought that was a really interesting response. And so I came to the headquarters, got to meet the team, and really got to understand the vision, which was, Keller Williams is one of the largest brokers for residential real estate in the world, but it's also private. And a lot of its competitors are either public or are VC backed. And so Keller Williams was kind of in this unique position to really impact the industry from where it stood, considering its market share, considering that it was private, and then it's founder led. So Gary Keller is really a visionary in this industry, and so getting to work with him has been an honor. And it's been a wild ride over those 6 years. We decided to invest in building proprietary software because the playbook back then was for brokers just to outsource it, and everyone outsourced it to the same partners. So there was no innovation, right, when you do that. And so it's been a really fun ride. We pivoted the company to focus on tech. We built it in-house, engineering, product design, and we did it with the help of companies like Netguru, who joined us on this journey to build this amazing software. And so it's been a huge effort. And you're right, we went from ideation to design to user research and testing, and now we have a lot of mature products out there that are getting really good adoption. And so it's been a great journey.
Yeah. And how was 2020 for you? Because it's been a challenging year for the world, right? And everyone could think that also it will be a huge impact for the real estate market. And so how was it for you, like 2020? Like, man, what was the highlights?
How was 2020 for anybody, Kamil? It was challenging. So 2020 for us has been, as an organization, it's been really, really, interesting. When the COVID first came out, a lot of real estate companies, apologies, a lot of real estate companies were really, really worried about the market. And we had a lot of our competitors furlough employees and go on freezes. And luckily, again, being private, as I mentioned, we didn't have to do any of that. So we didn't lay anybody off. We were ready to take the impact of whatever the recession was going to be. And I don't think any of us really saw it. Ended up being one of the strongest years in history, which is fascinating because you had the Fed have such a huge impact on mortgage rates that it made it really, really affordable to buy. And I think a lot of people having to quarantine and work from home got interested in buying real estate or moving out. And so we've seen, we expected the worst. Can't say it's been like the most exciting year because of the circumstances, but from a business perspective, we've had a really, really strong year. And then we've been able actually to continue to invest in, technology initiatives, continue to build without slowing down. Whereas some of our competitors had to slow down. And so we think we were in the right spot to grow. And yeah, it's just been a bizarre year, Kamil, and the numbers have been really, really strong for residential real estate specifically. And yeah, we're learning from it, and we feel like we're in a good position to continue investing in innovation right now. So yeah, we've been fortunate to be in a good side of things, all things considered.
I have one additional questions on that from our team. What was the most surprising thing, or how did the consumers' expectation has changed? Have you seen any change in this agents or consumers' expectation when the pandemic struck?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that there's been a lot of technology in real estate for quite a bit of time. Like it's as outdated as people make the real estate industry to sound like, there's some fantastic tech companies in this space, whether they're really, really new or whether they've been around for a while. So there's a ton of solutions that have been really, really pushing modernizing the real estate transaction, the real estate experience, if you may. And, traction has been slow. Like many markets, getting mass adoption takes a lot of time because really it's a B2B2C model. You're convincing agents to adopt technology and modernize themselves in order to serve the consumers. And so as their brokerage, we have two consumers. We have the agents, right? And we have our offices, and then we have the home buyer and home seller. And you have to modernize the transaction for both of them. You can't just do it on one side, because over 90% of people in the US use a real estate agent. And that number has actually grown in the last few years. And so for us, it's really about, putting out technology, empowering our agents, educating them, making them not feel overwhelmed, because that can happen. And then what's happened in 2020, I think it's really pushed adoption to those trends, because digital transactions and closings and digital notarization have been available, some more mature than others. But in 2020, you didn't have a choice. You had to adopt one of these. And so it really took a lot of people. I think that, if you're looking at the growth curve, you have your early stage adopters, and then you have your laggards. I think 2020 has really kind of rapidly progressed those people that typically would lag for adoption, and almost kind of force them to take a look at their tech stack as an individual, and how they can adopt different things to provide to the consumer who's saying, hey, I want to do a closing and I don't want to leave my room. I literally can't leave my room. The government won't let me leave my room. And so because of those things, we've seen a lot more adoption. So when I talk about it being a strong year due to unfortunate circumstances, we've seen that with our adoption and our engagement numbers. And then we're seeing a lot of agents get really, really creative, start to buy into a lot of the technology that's been out there, but been slow to adopt. And so, yeah, I think that's going to continue to, I don't think there's no going backwards, right? We're not going to go and say, digital closing was fun, but let's go drive 45 minutes and meet in person and, wait for all the third parties to be there. I think that's over. There's no going back, right? There's really going forward. And so I think it's going to be, it's hard to tell right now, but I think when we look back at this year and study it, we're going to see some really, really big user behavior, not so much from consumers as it is from actual agents and brokers themselves.
Yeah. So speaking of moving forward, what do you think how 2021 will be? I guess, the humankind is still, there's a big uncertainty about what is going to be the situation around the world with COVID, but from the technologist's plans perspective, how do you think that should progress? And maybe even looking at the crystal ball and trying to foresee how is 2025 is going to be, because I believe that big enterprise have to plan much more ahead than next year, right?
Yeah. I mean, if 2020's taught us anything, is that whatever you think is going to happen, you're wrong, right? Like, forecasting has never been harder. And I come from a background of forecasting industries. And so, I think what we've learned from 2020 is, the impact of the Fed on affordability. If rates continue to be this low, we see research that says that 45% of consumers, if they're allowed to continue working remotely, they want to move. 45%. So to put in perspective, Kamil, the U.S. real estate market has about 5 million to 5.5 million homes sell every year, and that's been a basis for a very long time. It doesn't really shift much between those numbers. This year, I think we're on pace. Well, it's almost over. I need to check the numbers, but I think it's about 6.5. So that's a million extra homes. That's 2 million transactions. So there's a buyer and a seller of each home. And so if these numbers are indicating, and that's only about 20% of people who said that they wanted to move because of remote work have actually moved. So if there's an additional 45% out there, I think you're going to see a migration that's never been seen before in history of its size. Question is, where are they moving? Well, they're moving to more affordable places. We in Austin and Texas are seeing a huge migration from California, which is great for me because I get to hire wonderful talent from the West Coast. But we're seeing a lot of people move out of the really expensive cities because they can work remotely now and their dollar can go a lot further, right? So it's just basic economics. And so we don't know exactly where they're going to go. We have some indications. We don't know exactly how serious that 45% is, right? Real estate has this secret no one talks about, is that a lot of people are window shoppers, right? Like Zillow gets hundreds of millions of unique visitors, but there's only 300 million people in the US. Like, it's a lot of people are just looking to look. And so you don't really know how many of them are serious buyers. It's too early to tell the curve. But early research indicates there's going to be, it could even be a stronger year, possibly. We don't know. But if these numbers are true, and if mortgage rates stay as low as they are, the only challenge right now is inventory. The number of homes available to sell is at all-time lows because everyone's buying and moving, and so prices are going up. The Fed keeps lowering the mortgage rates to make it easier, and at some point that's not going to work. And so construction takes very, very long. I think home construction is right now at like a really, really strong pace, but they're really getting started now. And honestly, home construction in the U.S. has been lagging since the 2009 recession. And so this has really, really exposed the lack of inventory. And so my fear is that, prices will continue to go up. And at some point, the Fed can only do what they can do. And it's going to be on the technology industry, on us innovators, to find a way to make homes affordable for people to buy and sell in the upcoming year. So we're really, really focused on how to solve that problem. There's a lot of different financial products out there, a lot of new interesting ones. And so you have to study those really, really seriously because purchasing real estate is the largest financial transaction 99.9% of us make. And an agent's job, a broker's job, is to make that experience as painless and as exciting as possible, but also as financially sound as possible. I think that's going to be a really, really big test for the industry because, as we learned in the last recession, being irresponsible at any level within the real estate industry can have catastrophic impact on the economy. And so we're taking it very seriously. We're studying. We're trying to predict as best as we can, but it's one quarter at a time, and then we'll see how it really shapes out.
Are you planning to buy next year?
Man, Kamil, we bought a house 2 years ago, and now that we're both working from home, we've already outgrown it, right? My wife, she's an interior architect, so she needs the office for all the space. So I'm in the dining room taking calls, and we can hear each other's call. So, that's a really good question. If you would have asked me this a year ago, I said, no, we're pretty happy. It's a really great house. We're really excited about it. But now we're already thinking, well, hey, maybe we need another room. We need a bigger house. And so, yeah, I'm always looking, Kamil. I'm one of those hundreds of millions of people who never stops looking. But who knows? If prices keep going up, especially as they are in Austin, it's going to be really, really hard very, very soon.
So speaking of this, since you are on the other side, bridging this consumer experience with the agents and helping agents to, offer the value in the right way to the right people, how would you, from the consumer perspective, how would you like to experience that at the technology level, right? How would you like to be served by agent?
So here's the thing, the path that the industry is on is actually a pretty good path, to be quite frank with you. It's a little bit slower, it's a little more painful than it is now. But the way we look at the kind of holy grail of real estate tech is end-to-end transaction, right? The transaction takes a really long time, it's very expensive, and it's very inefficient. And so consumers want what they want with any other experience is a digital on-demand experience where they can track the transaction through their mobile phone, where they get notifications, right? Our lives revolve around notifications. Okay, I don't know about you, Kamil. First thing I did when I woke up this morning is I checked my notifications. I checked my phone, but I programmed my phone to notify me of things that I care about. So when we think about the future of real estate and transactions, I want notifications to manage the deal, to understand what's going on, whether I'm in the search process, whether I'm pre-close, at close, post-close, et cetera. And so, there's no secret that that's what consumers want. The challenge is how do you build it and who builds it, right? And so our philosophy has been that, well, if most people, overwhelmingly most people are working with an agent, it makes sense to make that agent tech-enabled to provide that experience. Now, the challenge is there's so many players throughout the transaction. You have mortgage, you have title, you have insurance, and you have all these different players that at the transaction you're really dependent on, and they're not integrated, right? They're very manual. And so the consumer is having to be guided through all this paperwork and the emails and the texts and the phone calls and the in-office meetings. And so we've done the research, and consumers are very, very intimidated by the process, and it's painful. But the interesting thing is that people don't go through that experience very often in their life. First-time home buyers are age 32, and then once you buy your first home, you're really only transacting every 5 to 7 years on average. And so you don't go through that experience often, and it's painful, but then you have to go through it again for a while, so you kind of forget about it. So we've been trying to raise the standard of quality of that experience for quite a bit. And I think that when you have consumer demand show how powerful this can be, and some agents for the first time experiencing a digital closing or a remote closing, it's really going to shine a light on the efficiencies, right? How much time and money can be saved through the process. Now the question is, who builds it, right? Is it the lender? Is it the inspector? Is it the title? And so our kind of vision is end-to-end transaction from search to home management, and everything in between is on one platform. So it's a perfect industry. And what excites me about this industry for a platform play, where you can have third parties connect together to provide this experience, but you never leave the platform, right? I always tell this story. When we first started building technology at Keller Williams, one of the biggest kind of treasures that we had or advantages that we had was we had a really, really good culture and relationship with our agents. So we went to our agents, and I did a bunch of focus groups, kind of like blue sky ideation exercises, and say, hey, like, if we could build one thing today, what would it be? And the overwhelming majority kept telling me to build them a password reminder, Kamil, because they're using 8 to 12 different tools to manage their business, and they keep forgetting their passwords. And they want us to build a password reminder to help them because they didn't really trust or like some of the ones on the market. And my aha was, you don't need a password reminder. You just need one platform with one login that allows you to access those 8 to 10 things you do. So we started diving in and asking, what are those 8 to 10 things, and then prioritizing which one do we go after first. And that's kind of how Command was born, Connect, our consumer app, and building all of that on one platform will allow us to make that end-to-end transaction seamless. But Kamil, trust me when I say it's really, really hard to do. It takes a really, really long time. And then you got to get everyone on board with adoption, engagement, retention, et cetera. So we've been on this path. There's a few other companies out there on this path. And I think that we're very, very close to this kind of inflection point where consumer demand has been wanting this, is getting a little bit taste of it. And now we're about to turn the corner, and companies are really going to invest in building that platform. The question is just who builds it, who owns it, how does it operate, how does it integrate, is it closed, is it open? A lot of questions still yet to be resolved, but we're in the middle of it, and that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, I want to deep dive into this user experience from Netguru context, and dealing with different verticals and different user experiences. But I have one more questions related to the market and what's future can bring. How do you see this urge to move away from the city will impact this city centers and office real estate? So mixing the residential and commercial real estate, and I think commercial is even in bigger trouble. So what do you think? How this urge will be, and is it going to be a mix, a hybrid or something?
Yeah, I mean, what we saw, so I think there's two answers to that question. One is, we've seen massive urbanization over the last decade of talented young individuals, moving to the city for employment opportunities, for the culture. And so now with remote work, we're gonna, we believe we'll be seeing a big suburb movement to affordability, space, housing. And I think that's, a little bit fueled by the fact that you can't really experience any culture of being in a city right now because everything's kind of locked down. So time will tell where exactly, when the people say they want to move, where they're going to move. The further you get out of the city, the more affordable. So having an affordability issue, that makes sense, right? And so as an agent, what's really, really interesting is if you, we shadowed a big agent group here in Houston, Lance Logan Group. And what we identified is that, they're showing assistants. People, Lance Loken has a very large team, one of the largest in the country. I think over 100 people work for him. And there's people who specifically just drive around the city all day doing showings. And we found out that 4 hours of their day was driving. And they're not working, but they're technically working, but they're just driving. And so we're seeing a lot of demand for voice, being able to do quick tasks, real estate focused tasks via voice. Now, the funny thing is we built a voice assistant application called Kelly a few years ago. That was one of the first things we built based off of feedback we got in labs and the resources available. So it's kind of a low hanging fruit, saying, hey, people want a Siri for real estate if you may. So we'll connect it to the platform and they can do tasks, they can ask questions, they can pull up their database, do a few things well, but not do everything. And, adoption was good at first, and it was exciting. And then it kind of trailed off because people weren't building those patterns as they would. Same with Siri or Alexa. You see them really, really kind of use them for a few things, reminders, play music, etc. And so we were trying to make a few things. And now we're seeing, agents ask for that back. They were like, hey, it would be really cool if I could do a mobile app voice. And so we have something really, really exciting coming out early next year that's going to be focused around a mobile experience to bring some of that back. And so, it's interesting to see the dynamic change. And so we're seeing now from the agents who are saying, hey, I'm having to drive to do all these showings or to look at these homes. Now they're further and further apart. So that's just one example of a physical real world problem that we can solve with technology to empower them just a little bit, because they still want to go see the house in person and have to do showings or open houses. And what that looks like in the future, it's a great question. But I think you're seeing less and less dependency on physical real estate as far as like agents and brokers go, and more being empowered on the go, being able to accomplish real estate tasks within those, as Google defines it, micro moments. When I'm waiting in line for coffee for 15 minutes, or now I'm waiting in my car for coffee for 15 minutes, what can I accomplish that's going to make me productive, but it doesn't require a whole lot of focus, energy, desktop experiences. And so building towards those micro moments is going to be really, really key for us, because those micro moments happen on the consumer side and on the agent side. And so allowing them to connect with each other and accomplish things together, we're kind of building a collaboration platform about the real estate transaction, if that makes sense. And I think that's going to be a much bigger focus in the coming year.
So going to my question on comparing the verticals, like for example, fintech or retail. With fintech, there was this need from consumers for having some alternative than traditional, the traditional banks and all banks' user experience was not good enough. So there was some dissatisfaction with status quo. Within retail, I believe there was a need for convenience, right? And I want it now. What does the trick for proptech? What are the forces that drives the users? Like, how would you make this digital world attractive to the real estate consumers or real estate agents?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question, Kamil, because people call it prop tech, there's fintech, there's real estate tech, and they're all kind of solving the same problem in this vertical specifically, just from different angles, right? And so I think that because we're talking about how real estate's changing and technology is changing and behavior is changing, but the reality is, Kamil, it's changing for only those 6.5 million transactions, so 13 million people. People that are going to be buying next year have no idea what's going on because they don't care, right? They're not trying to buy, they're just trying to search. Well, search is commoditized. Everyone can search. There's a lot of good websites to do search. We've launched our own website to do search and a mobile app that's connected. And so, there's no problem with the search experience. It's the transaction experience, but people only experience it once a decade. And so it's one of those industries that as much innovation is happening, as much as changing, we love to talk about it. Sometimes we have to take our lenses off and say, hey, majority of people don't even know about this or care about this until they do, until they're trying to make the largest financial transaction they've ever made. And they go, oh, snap, like, this isn't fun. Like, why is this so bad? And we don't want people to have that experience. Ironically enough, the National Association of Realtors does a survey, and majority of people are overwhelmingly satisfied with their experience. But if you look at the numbers, you say, okay, cool, market's good, we don't have to solve anything. Well, they're satisfied with what they have, but they want more. And all the inefficiencies are very, very blatant. So there's no secrets in real estate about what needs to be improved. But I think it's interesting you bring up fintech because, proptech, making the transaction efficient is the best way we can have an impact on the experience, right? So I can't make more people buy homes because they need to be financially ready to do that. But what I can do is I can make the experience of buying and selling homes really easy. When you start thinking about it, we can make it easier to get you ready for the transaction. After you transact, no one talks about post-transaction really. It's like home management and knowing the equity in your home and your mortgage and taxes and how to sell, how to invest in real estate. There's a lot of opportunity there. But the reality is I just can't give you money to go buy a home. And fintech is saying, okay, actually, we're going to give you money to go buy a home. So I think it's a really interesting combination where a lot of fintech companies in the space are trying to solve the issue I originally mentioned, which was affordability. Now, that's very, very dangerous, as we learned, because when you make it very affordable for people who might not be able or aren't really prepared for a mortgage, it's a 30-year loan. It's one of the best debt products in the world. I mean, it's 30 years for, right now it's I think 2.7%. Take out inflation and it's a great product. You're getting access to hundreds of thousands of dollars for like the lowest interest rate ever. And so it's a great product. The challenge is, if you have to put 3% down and then you have to be responsible for this 30-year mortgage, are you in a position to do that? And so there's a lot of companies right now solving the financial problem, saying, hey, I know you can't afford a down payment, but what if we gave you some money? Or what if we purchased a home for you all cash? So in the US, if you buy all cash, you can definitely save a premium on the cost of the home. And then now you're actually leasing it from this company that bought it, and you're on this like lease to own path. So there's a few companies doing that. There's a few companies doing the bridge loan thing. So I live in this house, I want to buy that house, they'll buy it, and then you sell this one, and you can make that a little seamless. And so there's a lot of financial products out there. And for us, it's really, really important to understand the products, understand how do you exit out of them, and what are the financial implications, because what you don't want is to give someone a home who's not ready for it, affordability wise. And so I think it's going to be a really, really interesting year. And I hope it's, there's a lot of innovation happening in the fintech space around affordability to solve that problem, because there's only so much the Fed can do. But I'm an optimistic individual, but I take it very, very seriously, because it could have a really big impact on a lot of people's lives. And that's kind of what attracts people to work in this industry, right? It's a lot of people build wealth through real estate. It's where you live. It's really interweaved into our lives. And so you have to take that seriously. And so I think the next 12 to 18 months will be really, really crucial for fintech, for how they want to solve the affordability problem for a lot of buyers out there. And so it's going to be interesting to watch. And I think there's a lot of options out there, and we're studying them to identify which option is the best. And obviously we help distribution, scale, adoption. That's kind of our bread and butter. And so we're studying that market really, really closely.
I have some questions from the audience. Let me take this one. So do you have any favorite solution that was implemented in 2020? That, I guess that's in context of digital solutions that you've seen perhaps in real estate, or maybe with outside of real estate, that you've been quite inspired with outside of what you guys do in Keller Williams?
What we're doing right now. This is my favorite solution. I've never, this platform, as many other platforms, we seldomly used them before 2020. And this is a really powerful experience that a lot of us didn't have experience before. And so what's really interesting about Keller Williams is we've been really excited about live streaming for about 3 years. Gary Keller is a big believer in that the best content is live content. And, and that's been validated with Facebook and the TikToks of the world, and the Snapchats, right? With social media. And so we've really been trying to digitize real estate content. So one of the things Keller Williams has done really well, and again, one of the advantages of working Keller Williams is it's been one of the top training and education companies in the world. So we have educators, we have tons of content, we have coaches to help real estate professionals grow and develop their skill sets. And so we've been digitizing that and migrating that into an experience much like this. And so we're like beta right now with a product called Connect Next, which is a learning and management system that makes an experience like this for training and education. And so not only can you see classes, but you can very much kind of enroll in the courses, learning paths. And the reason we built that experience, that's one of my favorite things we've done in 2020 is build a foundation for that. And we're rolling out a few things here in February at our big event, Family Reunion, that's really going to showcase that and this experience specifically, because a lot of agents actually not only need to interact with their consumers, but with themselves like this. And if you've ever shadowed an agent, the best ones spend their mornings practicing their scripts one-on-one with each other. Well, they can't do that physically. And so script practicing is a really interesting feature that we've considered where you can do it in a virtual space. So there's a lot of things that we want to, embed the real estate experience around this kind of live stream connection of human people who are very, very far from each other. And so Connect Next is really exciting. We'll obviously have more announcements about that soon, and you guys will get to see that, so I can talk about it a little bit more in detail. But I think it's just the emphasis of live stream, of virtual calls, video calls. We've actually built a lot of content for that, but distribution of it, access to it, getting adoption has been, kind of an uphill battle. And now that we're in this new era of video calling, we're seeing much more excitement around it. And so I think for me, this has a lot of opportunity.
And to me, it sounds like it makes sense for you guys, since you've been named one of the best training organizations in US to make it in a digital context. I think that would be powerful. I have one brand-related question, and this is something related to what you've been talking earlier about the financing and having this different consumer brands. So post-transaction stage is really interesting. How important is it for Keller Williams to keep the customer bonded with the brand across all different products?
Yeah, so when I talk about end-to-end, right, everyone knows one end is search. You start with searching for real estate, and that's very popular. And then the other end is like, where's the end? Is it at the end of the transaction, or is it post-transaction? We're firm believers it's post-transaction. It's home ownership and home management. So it's really hard for you to want to download an app or another platform that lets you manage your home because it's a very, very physically focused experience, right? Whether you're taking care of your home or all your files are separate with your lender and your home insurance, they don't speak to each other. So, it's very, very fragmented. And so we do 100% believe that part of that end-to-end experience is going through the search phase, through the buy phase, and then through the home management phase, which is not just understanding how to take care of your physical asset, your home, you're understanding the financial implications of owning that home and how you're building equity, appreciation, and then understanding from a financial perspective, when is a good time to sell? If you're thinking about move, how much could you get for your home? If you're thinking about investing in your home, right? So that's always been really, really hard to quantify is if I build new cabinets in my house, how much does my home increase in value? I spent this much, what's the ROI, right? So I think it's a fascinating world there that exists, but you have to earn the right. And our philosophy is to be able to provide that experience, because if you got to start with the transaction, and that's our bread and butter is the transaction. So if we can digitize the transaction and make that seamless, then we earn the right to enter the home management space. And so I think that's something we're very excited about, but something that's going to be in the near future for us.
Do you think there is a room for like a smaller players, proptech startups, for adding some value to the platform? And what would be your advice to this proptech startups? Like, entering to the market in next years after this new status quo?
Yeah, that's a great question. So end to end is not as sexy as it sounds. End to end is a lot of data security. It's about privacy. There's a lot of fraud within the real estate transaction. You have to be considerate of. So, end to end sounds cool. On demand, everyone thinks of the front end experience, but the back end experience is really where a lot of the challenges lie. And the industry is going to require a lot of people working together to really modernize the real estate transaction. I think everyone has a role to play, and integrating and working together is really what's going to get the whole industry over that hump. I think Keller Williams has kind of a lot of flack for saying, hey, we're going to build our own tech and we're going to do things on our own. And that's not actually true. We were building a marketplace. We're building microservices and APIs to connect with these third-party players that do what they do really well within the transaction. So I think that there's plenty of space for all sizes of players, small, medium, large, in order to digitize the real estate transaction. We come from the large enterprise side, but I see a lot of companies out there. And my advice to them would be, keep attacking the key problems, listen to the users, obviously. And it's honestly not as expensive as it sounds. I think a lot of people get intimidating to say, oh, well, to solve that problem, I'm going to need to build a 10 million or 100 million or $1 billion company to solve that. And I need to go raise a ton of money. And the reality is that the United States is very, very big. The world is very, very big. If you can solve a problem for people really, really well at any size, scaling that will take time, but there's a lot of different routes to go, and it doesn't require, throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at the problem. I think you can leverage the lean startup and lean methodology in real estate tech. And then I'm saying that because I've seen it done, but I'm also saying that because I've seen a lot of people approach it the wrong way. And you just got to chip away at the mountain, one chip at a time. And eventually, I've seen a lot of really good businesses be built that way. And so my advice would be to continue chipping away at it. Don't stop and look up and say the mountain's too big. So don't look up, just keep chipping.
Yeah. And what about the big players and, the big digital strategists in larger enterprises that already transforming? Do you think there's some pivots required after what's happened in 2020? Do they have to rethink the strategies, or being more, swift with the strategies, or more, I would say, on hold with the strategies?
I don't think on hold, right? So we've had, I'll talk about Redfin because it's public knowledge that they furloughed a good, I think, 10 or 15% of their company because of the pandemic, and now they're actually really struggling to hire them back. They want to hire them back as fast as possible because, again, the recession everyone anticipated for the residential real estate market actually never happened. It happened for a month, and then it accelerated so quickly. And so I think what you're seeing is people are saying, hold on, we need to hit the gas pedal, not the brakes. And, and I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the summer, which has impacted a lot of different players. We hit the gas. And so and that worked out for us. And I think there's been a few other companies that hit the gas. If you hit the brakes, it's not the end of the world, but it just makes things a little bit challenging because demand is so high right now that right now is when market share, is really evolving. And so, I think there's a lot of good players, Kamil. I think there's a lot of companies attacking it from different angles. We talked about mortgage, title, insurance. There's a ton of innovation in all of these spaces. And so what I've learned is the market's big enough for a lot of us. It's not just going to be one, huge player. I think that the real estate tech industry kind of lags some of the larger tech industry. And so, but I think from that, you get a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, a lot of research to study the market. And so I really do think there's enough room for a lot of different size players solving a lot of different problems. It's a very complicated and hard problem to solve. And so, we're tracking the market as anybody else. Some companies are public, so they're very dependent on the public market. Some companies are VC backed, so they're very dependent on their exit strategy. We're private, but we just announced a big reorg where we're announcing KWX parent company, and we're starting these companies, Keller Mortgage, Keller Covered, Keller Offers, under this umbrella, and we're just another piece of that with KWRI. So, I think that's an exciting move for us that allows us to be more flexible and nimble and take some pieces of the transaction that haven't been modernized as fast as we want them to and take ownership of that. And so, I think it's going to be, listen, it's been a really interesting 5 years. When I joined real estate 6 years ago, no broker was building their own software. Now, every broker is building their own software. And I think that's put a lot of pressure on some of the smaller and medium-sized brokerages to be dependent on kind of agent tools. But I think that market's really going to struggle as more and more brokers realize they need to own the platform themselves in order to be flexible, be nimble, modernize, innovate, all of those things. You got to have your destiny in your own hands, because if you don't, the market's going to decide for you. And so we're fortunate enough to be in a position, I'm fortunate enough to work for a company in a position to be able to have direct impact on that.
Cool. Hopefully next year will be better than this.
Yeah, you're not the person to say that for sure, Kamil. Yeah, I hope so too, man.
Yeah, but anyway, we stay optimistic, and I'll let you leave for your preparations for the holidays. I also have some, the pipeline of dumplings to prepare myself. And
yes, give me some of those. Can you ship those internationally? Do they last?
Will do. All right, then. Appreciate your time, Adi, and have a great holidays with your family, and talk next year.
Yeah, you too, Kamil. Great conversation. Thanks for having me, man.
Take care.
All right, see ya.